He's not in the Meadowlands, and they'll never find his body.
Gambling is legal.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 2 of Sports Conspiracies. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about a person by the name of Jimmy Hoffa. Now, who's Jimmy Hoffa, you ask? Jimmy Hoffa was the president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters from 1957 to 1971. This was a union-oriented group, and they did a lot of stuff with the union. The union was like really big back then, and yeah, so it's a union-oriented group. In his early years with the company, Jimmy became part of organized crime. So, while the mob was on his side, everything, Jimmy was charged with jury tampering, attempted bribery, and fraud. Now, these are actually some very serious crimes. So, he's a businessman, he helps the mob get away with stuff. He gets something in return. Basically how this all worked. That's why he became part of organized crime. So, basically, he was imprisoned in 1967. He was sentenced to 13 years. He did not serve the entire term. Basically what happened, he struck a deal with President Nixon at the time. It was for a pardon. So, Jimmy resigns from the role of president in the company, then he gets let out of prison earlier. Basically how it works. So, in 1971, Jimmy resigned as president. Later that year, Jimmy is released from prison. Now, I don't think the mob is very happy about this. Like, they didn't want him to go to prison to begin with, but Jimmy's no longer the president, so he can't help them out. And that kind of makes him upset because, by the time he got out, he still could have helped them, everything. But the mob's mad. So, basically, Jimmy was banned from doing any union activities or work until 1980. So that's when his sentence in jail would be over. So, Jimmy didn't want to wait that long. He obviously still wanted to be a very big part of the union. So he tried to gain more support. He wanted to get all of his support back. And eventually, by the time 1980 got here, maybe he would go be the president of the IBT again. Who knows? Like I said earlier, the mob's mad. They didn't like that Jimmy resigned. They didn't think he was going to be able to help them out anymore. So they're upset. Fast forward a few years. 1975. July to be exact. Jimmy Hoffa goes missing. No one knows where he is, what he was doing, or how he even disappeared. He's just gone. Obviously, the first thought everybody has is, oh, it's the mob. Because the mob got rid of people that didn't need anymore, or that they didn't like, obviously, so they just got rid of them. Basically, Jimmy's been gone for years. So, 1982 gets here. He's been gone for 7 years. They declared Jimmy dead. No longer just missing, he's dead. 7 years, can't find him. It's like, he has to be dead. Nobody can find him anywhere. This guy, very big. FBI searching for him, everything. Nobody knows where he's at. What does this have to do with sports? What does a guy who worked for a union company and probably killed by the mob have to do anything with sports? I'll tell you. The theory is Jimmy disappeared. People thought he's just missing and stuff. No. Basically, at the time he disappeared, he was killed and he was buried underneath the Giants stadium in the end zone. How crazy would that be? The Giants had their stadium from 1976 to 2010. Could you imagine playing on a field with a dead person's body in the end zone that you celebrate and score on all the time? It's a bit creepy. Why do people think this? Well, basically, Jimmy was probably missing for about a year. because that was during the time of construction when the Giants stadium was being built. Stadium's not done until 1976. Where are you going to hide this man in New York? New York's a very populated city. You can't just hide him anywhere. So, during construction, they went and hid his remains in the construction area. And they finished building the stadium right over top of his body. A new stadium was built. It's called MetLife Stadium. It's what they play in now. It was built right next door to where Giant Stadium was. Why would they move it right next door? Maybe it's because people from that old stadium knew they had to get out of that stadium because they knew what they did, but they just moved it right next door. So, when that stadium was demolished, those people were happy, like, oh, brand new stadium, same area, but we don't have to deal with the thought that Jimmy Hoffa could still be found. Now, there was many tests done on the stadium to find where his body was. Mythbusters even came out. Mythbusters couldn't find nothing. Nobody found anything. No human remains were found, even after the demolition. So no human remains before, after. Where's Jimmy Hoffa? There was recently, a few years ago, there's an interview done with a member of the mob from back then. He states he's not in the Meadowlands, which is the area in which the stadium's located. And he says, and you will never find him. Going off that logic, do you think Jimmy Hoffa was buried under the Giant Stadium? I guess it's time for me to give my opinion on the situation. Personally, I don't think he was buried underneath the stadium. I really don't. I think it'd be too public. I feel like they would have found at least something in their tests if they were doing it before, even after the demolition. I feel like you would have found something. And I don't think the mob would have been that dumb to hide him in such a public place. Which, see, that's why it's the perfect place, because you know it's public. Nobody's going to sit there to search. It's a football stadium. Why would somebody be buried underneath? After running all the tests, I don't believe Jimmy Hoffa was buried under the stadium. And they might have, like, chipped him up or something. But Jimmy Hoffa's body was probably destroyed completely. And he was never found because there was nothing left of him to find. If you guys enjoyed this episode, leave a like down below. Comment if you're enjoying the series. And make sure to subscribe, because you're not going to miss episode 3. I'll see you guys in the next episode of Sports Conspiracies. Peace.